Small groups typically occur in the church historically during two basic times. One is during times of persecution. You know, look at China. When the missionaries left China, when the communists came in the 1940s, the missionaries were scared. What's going to happen to the church? Church has grown exponentially. We don't know exactly how many, but we know by reports that come out of China that there are huge numbers of Christians in China. Where do they meet? Small groups, in homes. Now, if they had the freedom, would they meet more publicly? Yes, they would. What's empowering that in China is the pressure of persecution. The other time that small groups really thrive is during time of revival. So when John Wesley and Charles Wesley sought to reform the Church of England, and the Church of England didn't appreciate the revivalistic type of preaching and told them you can't preach in the churches anymore, and they go out and start preaching to the coal miners and the poor people in England, and they started winning them to Christ. Where are they going to put them? They can't go to the church because it's the Church of England. What they do, they started what they called classes, which were small groups. And it actually began to be such a predominant methodology that now we call them Methodists. That's where the term Methodist came from, because they had a method. What was the method? Small groups, classes. Why did they have classes? Because they didn't have any churches to put them in. Now over the years, 200 plus years now of Methodism, that's changed a lot in the Methodist Church. It really has. To their detriment, actually. It's changed quite a bit. But that was a revival time. And during times of revival, small groups always tend to percolate up. So we can do reverse revival. Okay? Think about this. By reverse revival, here's what I mean. You don't have revival that results in small groups. What you do, if you need to have revival in your church, you start small groups. And small groups help bring revival. Otherwise, reverse, I guess the better way is reverse engineer. Okay? In the Wesley sense, they preached and preaching the gospel of Christ, and people came to Christ, and that brought revival. And then out of the need of so many people coming to Christ, they went to small groups. You can reverse engineer that, is what I'm trying to say. If you're in churches that are really dead and struggling and complacent, one of the ways you begin to turn that around is you start small groups and get people together, praying together, studying the Word of God, applying the Word of God to their lives. The Word of God is powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword. It begins to penetrate their lives, at least some of them, enough of them. They begin to change. They begin to grow. As they begin to grow, the church begins to grow. The growing churches are somewhat a product of growing people. Growing people cause growing churches. If you've got dying churches, sometimes you have dying people. Spiritually, I'm thinking. You know, they're not dynamically involved with the Word, with prayer, with care, with relationships. So now, I also said earlier, as you recall, that small churches don't need small groups. So there's a balance there. But some churches, there's small churches. If you try and start small groups, they will resist it because they just don't see the need for it, because they have kind of a small group atmosphere. But even in those churches, if you can start even one Bible study, or encourage the pastors to do that. As the pastors talk to people and they find people who really care about the church, encourage the pastor to get those few people together and to begin to study the Word together and pray for the church and things. They will start growing. And then as the opportunity happens, start another group and another group. And start studying the Word of God, studying the passages about the mission of the church, the purpose of the church, things like that, praying, ministering to one another, gradually ministering outside the church. Small groups can be a part of the process of bringing about the renewal and the revival of the church.